Welcome back to Inside the Spotlight, where the real stories get exposed. If you love jaw-dropping celebrity scandals, shocking downfalls, make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash the bell icon so you never miss the drama as it unfolds. In 1986, Prince secretly gifted the Bangles their biggest hit, but that wasn't all he gave Susanna Hoffs behind the scenes. Something more personal was happening between them. What started as a fairy tale connection led not only to success but also to rising tensions within the band. Later, Susanna would marry a well-known director in 1993, but before that, she was involved with several actors and musicians in relationships that Hollywood quietly kept out of the spotlight. Each romance brought with it a wave of secrets and scandal. What really happened between her and Prince? And how did her love life unintentionally play a part in fracturing one of the biggest girl bands of the 1980s? Susanna Hoffs was born on January 17, 1959, in Los Angeles, California. Her upbringing was far from ordinary. Her father, Joshua Allen Hoffs, was a highly regarded psychoanalyst who worked with some of Hollywood's most notable figures, while her mother, Tamar Ruth Simon, broke barriers as one of the few female directors working in the film industry during the 1950s. The family lived in Pacific Palisades in a home that cost $180,000 at the time, equivalent to around $1.8 million today. Their home was filled with original art, movie memorabilia, and a constant buzz of intellectual conversation. Susanna grew up alongside her brothers, John and Jesse, in a Jewish household where creativity was encouraged and ideas flowed freely. Her mother's love for the Beatles wasn't just casual, it bordered on obsession. When I Want to Hold Your Hand took over American radio in 1964, their home essentially transformed into a Beatles shrine. Tamar collected every album, every single, and even rare bootlegs, spending over $2,000 a year on Beatles memorabilia, which would amount to around $18,000 today. The Beatles music played constantly. Abbey Road in the mornings, Sgt. Pepper at dinner. It wasn't just background noise, it was the soundtrack of Susanna's childhood. By the time she was 6, she could harmonize with any Beatles song without even realizing that she was absorbing the musical techniques that would later define her band's sound. At 7 years old, Susanna began guitar lessons with her uncle, Robert Simon, a seasoned session guitarist who had played with Sonny and Cher. In 1966, he gifted her a small Martin acoustic guitar worth $85 back then, approximately $750 today. They practiced every Saturday in the family's garage, which had been converted into a mini studio. Within just 2 years, she had mastered 47 chord progressions and written her first original song titled Sunshine in My Room. Her uncle documented all her progress in a leather-bound notebook, which still survives to this day. By age 9, she was already exploring advanced jazz chords, laying the foundation for her to eventually distinguish herself in the male-dominated world of rock, not just as a vocalist, but as a capable guitarist who could switch between rhythm and lead. Music wasn't her only passion. From the age of 5 to 12, Susanna studied ballet at the West Side Ballet Academy in Santa Monica. Monthly tuition cost $40 at the time, the equivalent of $360 today. Her instructor, Madame Violet Armand, had once danced with the Paris Opera Ballet. Through ballet, Susanna developed poise, confidence, and an ability to command attention on stage, skills that would later set her apart from the more unruly energy typical of 1980s rock performers. She performed in 3 recitals, including a 1971 staging of the Nutcracker, where she played a snowflake. All these early experiences in music and dance shaped the polished, magnetic stage presence she became known for. Susanna graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, in 1980 with a degree in art, but her academic path wasn't a straight line. She had tried out several majors, including dance, theater, film, and sculpture, before finally landing on art. This wasn't due to indecisiveness, but rather a deep, creative curiosity. During the day, she focused on painting and sculpting, while at night she began experimenting with music alongside her boyfriend, David Roach. Their band went through a few name changes, from the Psychiatrists to the Unconscious, but it quickly became more than just a hobby. Her professors had assumed she would pursue a career in galleries or museums, but Susanna was already dreaming of a life in music. 2 live performances deeply impacted her and changed the course of her life. The first was the Sex Pistols' final concert at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco on January 14, 1978, which ended with Johnny Rotten famously asking the crowd if they felt cheated. The second was a Patti Smith performance, where Smith's blend of poetry and punk struck a chord in Susanna. She later said that was when she truly felt the energy of the punk and art movement. It was a pivotal moment. She realized she could express something raw and powerful with just a few chords. Listening to the Ramones, she thought, I can do that. That realization pushed her from acoustic to electric guitar and solidified her desire to be part of something larger than herself. After graduation, Susanna stunned her family by walking away from visual art completely. They had expected her to follow in the family's creative footsteps, perhaps into film. Like her mother, but instead, she moved back to Los Angeles and began searching for musicians to form a band. It was a risky choice. In 1980, the rock scene was still dominated by men, and female guitarists were rare. But Susanna trusted in the musical foundation laid by her uncle and believed she could carve her own path. In 1981, fresh out of UC Berkeley, Susanna came across a small ad in a Los Angeles newspaper placed by Vicky and Debbie Peterson, two sisters seeking bandmates who loved the same music. She responded, and when they first harmonized together in a garage in Northridge, something just clicked. With that one harmony, a band was born. They initially called themselves the Supersonic Bangs, then the Bangs, and eventually settled on the Bangles. The rock world still largely excluded women, and for women rehearsing in a garage seemed almost laughable to some, but they didn't stop. They kept practicing, performing in clubs, and chasing the dream. Their first album was released in 1984 to critical praise, but commercial success didn't follow. It peaked at number 80 on the charts and sold just over 49,000 copies worldwide. Despite positive reviews, they got little to no radio play, and MTV ignored them. Without exposure, there was no money, which meant they had to juggle day jobs with night gigs. Though they were signed to Columbia Records, it didn't feel like they had made it. The label started to worry and, under pressure, began pushing Susanna to the forefront, not because she sought the spotlight, but because the industry believed a single marketable face sold better than a unified group. What made the Bangles stand out, however, was their vocal chemistry. Their harmonies weren't manufactured, they emerged organically during those early garage sessions. Everyone shared lead vocals, creating a rich and layered sound. Susanna brought her experimental music background, while the Peterson sisters contributed folk and classic rock influences. Vicky's jangly guitar sound became part of their signature, a style critics later labeled neo. But in the 1980s, being different wasn't enough. Female bands were often seen as gimmicks, and media outlets frequently sexualized them. When the Go-Go's appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone, they were posed in their underwear with a caption that read, "Go-Go's put out." This was the climate the Bangles had to navigate. Columbia Records began shaping the band's image, slowly shifting the spotlight toward Susanna. Though the group was built on equality, the industry subtly eroded that balance. Then, something unexpected happened. In 1984, Prince wrote a song called Manic Monday, which he initially recorded as a duet for another act but chose not to release. 2 years later, under the pseudonym Christopher, he quietly gave the track to the Bangles. It wasn't random. He had listened to their debut album and was intrigued by Susanna Hoffs. He even attended one of their shows. Susanna later described the experience as a fairy tale. Prince didn't show up with glass slippers, he brought a hit song. Manic Monday was released in 1986 and soared to number 2 in both the US and UK. The success of that single propelled their second album, Different Light, which sold over 3 million copies in the US alone and went platinum in the UK and Canada. 5 singles from the album charted, and the Bangles were no longer underground, they were everywhere. Their biggest smash hit came with Walk Like an Egyptian, which topped the charts in the US, Denmark, and the Netherlands. It held the number 1 spot on Billboard for 4 consecutive weeks, and became the top song of 1987. The music video earned an MTV nomination for Best Group Video, and the Bangles officially transitioned from a garage band to global pop stars.